multiverse, and welcome to the Infinity Podcast, the show that connects popular comics to pop culture with an infinite number of detours along the way. I am Rachel Quirky Shank, NPR host.
I am Scott Thomas.
And I am Patrick Willems. Welcome to the show.
Hey, y'all.
Rachel, you came in with that smooth chocolate. I was
Thank you.
Damn.
I'm in a very smooth room now.
There's no straight lines, no hard edges, no
it's
corners.
Just it's this room is just so chill. It's the best room I've ever crafted. For those of you who don't know, who are listeners, I recently moved units after a really bad kitchen leak in my ceiling. And the new space is so nice. It's a reno. It's beautiful, and we now have sort of a dedicated computer room with internet that reaches all the rooms in our house. So I'm in a really great place that's very, very organized and whimsical. So I feel amazing.
You were moving on
Nice.
up by moving on down.
I moved
it's
on
amazing.
up by moving. It's wild. I lost
Yeah.
a wall, but I gained so much more.
Amazing.
Tear
Amazing.
down those walls.
Tear down that one wall that separated the kitchen from the living space. Make it an open concept. Let's go. It rules. I can't wait to have folks over. It's such a nice apartment.
Well, that might happen, honestly, in the nearish future, because some personal news. Our own Scotty T is fully vaccinated.
Fully
Yeah,
vaxxed.
baby. I got that fully vax. Nobody in Godzilla vs. Kong. Let's go.
Hey, Scott,
Yeah.
no joke. In exactly 7 days, I will be joining you.
I am so excited.
Jealous.
When we are, because we behind the scenes, we record generally on Sunday mornings.
Yes.
9:15 a.m. next Sunday is my appointment for dose numero dos.
Dose. For dose.
Dose.
Yeah.
And can I say, you and I both really got our vaccines in service of podcast recording, because I got mine on a Friday, you got yours on a Sunday, which means neither one of us had the shitty day after dose 2 on recording day. Folks, it's a ride.
Day 2?
It's a ride. Day
So
2.
Yeah.
the day after you get it.
The day after is a ride. Take the day off. That's my PSA. It is not you are fine. You will be okay. Do take the day off. Take the day off. It's definitely worth it.
Okay. Actually, this is a good conversation to have on, Mike. So
Yeah.
I have been planning the day after I get it
Yes.
to drive upstate to visit my parents. Would you recommend waiting a day before making a 4-hour drive?
I would recommend waiting a day or doing it the night of the day you get the vaccine, like
Okay.
Sunday night.
So your body doesn't start reacting badly.
Yeah. And
Okay, good to know.
Here's another insane thing. Now,
Mm-hmm.
guys, you know I don't like conspiracy theories. That is not my jam. I am like a fact and take based
Yes,
person.
absolutely. But you do have superpowers and a microchip now. It's totally fine.
That's
we get
absolutely
it.
right. Yes.
We understand.
Bill Gates has been talking to me. He's been like, "Are you in this
in
NFT
your
art?"
head.
I'm like, "No." I'm like, "Pass."
Ugh.
But here's some doctors told me this 2 weeks ago.
Cool.
Friends of mine who are doctors. I did it, and my day 2 was not as bad as a lot of people's I know. Get the shot in your other arm. Apparently, if you get the shot in your other arm, your day 2 is not as awful as it otherwise would be. And while I had aches, while I had just a little bit of chills, I never had a fever. I was mostly fatigued. Did not go through the absolute gauntlet some of my friends have. So other arm, y'all. Do the other arm.
I've
Cool.
heard the same thing, and that is my plan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just want to make it abundantly clear that I am not eligible for the vaccine yet. And when I am, I will be getting it. So don't think that I'm sleeping on it for any other reason than we are safe and happy here in Team Goober Home. We are cool to chill, until it is our turn. And when we do, we are so proud to join the herd immunity. So
Yeah.
Get
Yeah.
vaccinated when you can. And if you want to try and like get in at the end of day at places, like that's also an option. Like you've heard it all over, like the refrigerated ones get thrown away, so you might as well go get it.
Yeah,
Live your life.
my friend and sometimes collaborator David Chen got one yesterday in Seattle because he just heard that Walmart's just had extra doses that were being thrown out, and he showed up and just got it.
Yeah.
So, but look, the important thing is this is all now happening quicker than I expected. I was so ready to just wait until, I don't know, like July for mine. And now Scott and I are making tentative plans to go watch giant monsters fight in a movie theater.
Yeah.
And I'm
Yeah.
like, I'm so excited.
Pretty wild.
I'm
That's
gonna
very
cry.
fun.
I'm gonna. This movie's gonna make me cry, and not because the movie made me cry. If we're at an IMAX together and Godzilla and Kong are punching each other, just actual.
And
tears.
Rebecca Hall is talking about it, bringing her A game.
Also, correct me if I'm wrong. Even when you are vaccinated, you can still spread COVID. So wearing a mask even after you're vaccinated is recommended.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean,
I put that in a form of question because I knew it, but I didn't want to be like.
I mean, let me put it this way. I am not going to leave the site of getting my second shot and rip my mask off and throw it into the air and then run down the street grabbing everyone I see and giving them a big smooch on the mouth. I'm not gonna do that.
Though that
as
would be
tempting as it
fun.
is.
That sounds really great. No, I only mention it because I was walking down the street running some errands, like getting some new household stuff, and there was a woman about 10 paces behind me very loudly on a phone conversation being like, so does it mean that when I have the vaccine, I can stand next to somebody who's got COVID and they won't give me COVID? And it's just like, you got your second vaccine and your PCP or whoever administered the shot didn't explain this to you? Like,
No.
what is happening?
No.
And it's just like, so let's just be real. Like, if you have the vaccine, you cannot get COVID, but you can still carry COVID in you. It's just your body won't take it up in its shop. It's just like, it's walking around the halls. It can't get into the classrooms, but like it can leave the school again and go to somebody else's school and like mess it up.
The way I keep thinking
Your
about
body
this,
is a school in this analogy.
well, like let's keep that analogy going. If your body is a school and your experience of having the vaccine is school-ish, then the way I see it is that like once you have the vaccine, the smartest thing to do is to pick an elective course, right? You don't want to overload your schedule with electives like indoor dining, like hanging out with friends in groups of 10 to 12.
Yeah.
My elective is going to be movies. Like, I'm still going to be as careful as humanly possible, but I'm absolutely allowing myself to go back to the movie theater.
Yeah, and
like,
if I may
thing.
take this as an opportunity to pivot, if you are vaccinated and your school is safe, the COVID vaccine is just going to shoot out at you like red syrup.
What a world-class pivot.
When you were bringing up the school thing, I really thought Scott was going to be the one
To like take it and run.
to make that connection.
To Chester A. Arthur Elementary. And folks, if you haven't figured out what we're talking about
guts,
yet.
No glory.
That's right.
Said twice. Same actor.
I'm
Indeed,
so glad that guy lives.
Me too. He rules. I want that guy to exist in real life and just throw explosives all over police precincts.
So
Thank
let
you.
me
He's the
tell
true
you.
hero.
Let me tell you a story about that actor. We haven't even. First off,
We haven't even said what movie we're
we
talking
haven't even
about.
said what movie we're talking about.
And people are
Why?
like, why are they talking about a movie? I thought they were going to talk about, I don't know, like some
who
Marvel
gets-
TV show.
Who gets squirted with red Kool-Aid in a school? What movie is this?
Pancake syrup.
Pancake syrup.
Pancake syrup.
Dyed red pancake syrup.
Yeah,
That's
which
exactly
also made
right.
me wonder, like,
I love this
So not
movie.
maple syrup? Like, is this like a cherry syrup thing?
Maybe.
Yeah.
Like a blend to get the
Yeah.
right color. I just love the idea of just like one of those like henchmen just having to blend a bunch of different syrup colors and compare it to the activating agent. It's like, does this look right, boss? Is this the right viscosity? What do you think?
In my mind, it's the guy who has
legit-
trouble. It's the guy who has trouble speaking English because they're like,
Yes.
"Where did you find him?" It's like, "Well, we needed him. He was the pancake syrup guy."
Yeah.
Right now-
he got the color and consistency correct.
Folks, right
so.
now there are probably like 20 people screaming at their phones that they're listening to this on. What the fuck is this movie you're talking about?
Yeah.
We are discussing 1995's seminal, classic, highest-grossing film of that year, Die Hard with a Vengeance. And if you are asking yourself, wait, why are we discussing that? Well, A, because we want to.
Yeah.
We can do whatever we want. This is our show.
B, Nick Fury's in it, so calm down.
Right. Nick Fury is in it, and our future Hawkman is in it. Aldous Hodge is one of Sam Jackson's children at like age 89.
Also,
I have nephew.
Alfred Pennyworth in the Snyder Cut is in it.
Right. There you go. All these connections.
Yeah, this is just all Snyder cut
Bruce
crap.
Willis was that weird guy in Sin City
So,
who fucks Jessica Alba in that, I think. Did I
no,
forget.
he just wants, he just
He just
kind of
wants
wants
to,
to, but
yeah.
also it feels
Like
kind of like
she-
her dad.
Yeah.
He's just
'cause
very protective. But the important thing
He saved her
is
when
that,
she was a little kid from Elijah Wood.
no.
No.
That was
I don't
Ricky
remember.
Rourke.
I
From
don't
Nick's-
remember
yeah,
Sin City
from
at
Nick
all.
Stahl. The important thing is that
Doesn't matter.
in that movie, Bruce Willis, with his bare hand, rips off Nick Stahl's dick.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, he really does.
Yep. You know, actually, okay.
Anyway,
So, let me just
we've now justified this movie.
Okay,
Let's
I'm going to
go.
say two things. I'll say the less important one, maybe more important one first. But okay, it is kind of wild considering that Bruce Willis basically takes any job offer that is handed to him and will just like fly out to Eastern Europe to shoot like, you know, a movie for 3 days for $1 million that is just straight to Redbox, and
Yeah.
that he does this constantly. I'm just like, because his name still carries weight, even though he only really tries and like puts in effort about once every 8 years into a movie. It's
Yeah.
still kind of surprising that they haven't like put him in a Marvel movie, even in the way that like Stallone is in Guardians 2,
Yeah.
because you know, like, look. It's Willis. He's an icon, and he's just like a gruff bald guy. I'm just like, it's kind of like, have they not tried to put him in something? Did he say no because he was lazy? I don't know. But the other thing I wanted to say, we should explain why we're talking about Die Hard with a Vengeance, a
Yes.
movie that this year will be 26 years old.
Yeah. And the reason we're doing this is, look, Falcon and Winter Soldier comes out next week, and we have been debating how we want to cover that show. And we thought it was more exciting and interesting to look at the source material that is really why Falcon and Winter Soldier exists, namely the buddy action comedy genre.
Yes.
Now, we don't know how far Falcon and Winter Soldier is going to fall into that category, but if the clip released this week makes anything clear, it is definitely ripping pages from that playbook. The internet lit itself on fire, with good reason, for a scene of Sebastian Stan and Anthony Mackie kind of chopping it up, throwing playful, sexually tense insults at one another. And what is that if not the homoeroticism on the surface version of what Bruce Willis and Sam Jackson are doing in this film for most of its runtime?
Yeah, there was never a more romantic moment than when the phone is ringing at that payphone by the trash can, and Bruce Willis just begrudgingly saying, "I need you more than you need me."
I love it.
You had me at hello, Bruce. What? Stop it.
And, like,
Ugh.
And of course, like, the thing with Falcon and Winter Soldier is I feel like when this show was announced, and also just looking at some of like again, as we've talked about before, Kevin Feige is really, really good at basically telling people, like, at just directing the conversation about like a Marvel project before it even comes out. Like, people still and we've just said this on the show before, but people still constantly talk about how, you know, Captain America: The Winter Soldier is really like a 70s conspiracy thriller like The Parallax View, because that's just what Feige was saying before it came out, even though the movie just kind of like has like a handful of like homages to it, but it's not really that. And the thing with Falcon Winter Soldier is I feel like what we were being told right from the start is, oh, this is kind of like Midnight Run. It's kind of like, you know, like a buddy road movie. And then the trailers came out and we were, at least I think we were all kind of like, I don't know, just kind of looks like a big Marvel action movie with like a lot of CGI and explosions and stuff like that. But then this clip dropped where it is these mismatched partners who are different races are basically just kind of like verbally sparring with each other and like shooting zingers back and forth. And right there I was like, oh no, this is the buddy movie that I want this whole thing to be. Yeah. And it's so clear. And again, this is a 54-second clip. So not out of a like 6-ish hour series. Yeah. But based on this alone, it very much looks like it is like intentionally sort of fitting into the long history of this subgenre of the buddy action comedy-ish subgenre. Yeah. And so we felt like it would be good to examine several movies from the history of the buddy action movie, and also it gives us an opportunity to just talk about movies that we like, and then maybe we'll compare it to, as Falcon Winter Soldier is going on. Maybe we'll like. We'll talk about like, how does this episode maybe connect to this? But really, we just want to talk about a bunch of fun movies.
Yeah. And when Marvel is pulling from the pop culture lexicon, it behooves us as viewers to know what they're pulling from, right? It doesn't have to be like, oh, they're pulling from Parallax Views, so it doesn't count. It's like, no, it's good to see the seams to know how well the tapestry is assembled. You know what I mean? That's part of the joy. You zoom in to be able to zoom out and enjoy the whole. So hopefully this will enhance your Falcon and Winter Soldier viewing experience. And if it doesn't, we're still talking about some really great, awesome movies. So
yeah, and I would say that this movie, more than a lot that we're going to watch, kind of falls into that Marvel mentality in a weird way, where it's like, this is a really strong movie through the first like 2/3, and then you hit that final action sequence and it's kind of like schlocky and overblown. It's
perfunctory
and like fantasy wish fulfillment. It's kind of one of those moments where it's just like, I just expect Sam Jackson to look at Bruce Willis and go, you need to wake up, John. You know, because it's just so like high fantasy of just like exploding helicopters and we magically found him because the pill bottle he lent me. You know, it's just like, it's wild. That ending is wild.
Well, and even I completely agree with you. And to build off of what you're saying, that ending was focus grouped, which is something we talk about with Marvel a lot, right? Like,
we'll also, I realize we're jumping into the ending right away here.
Sorry, I just couldn't help myself because like that's the perfect like comparison point.
It's true. So sorry, Scott, continue what you were saying.
I actually don't know what the alternate ending is, so.
It's on YouTube.
It is. Yeah, you can see it.
Rachel, you've got to watch it.
Yeah, I should maybe not tell you what it is so you can see it, like, honestly.
Let's just say it is on a much smaller scale, and it is much more character-focused as opposed to a big, bombastic action finale.
It's also dream wish fulfillment.
Yeah, but it's also... It's both more interesting and worse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like it's strangely dark. Good. But yeah, it's a really small scale ending, and you get why it didn't test well with like test audiences, but then they kind of went, okay, let me put it this way. There was a lot of like when Mission Impossible Rogue Nation was filming. My personal, by a very small margin, favorite series in that franchise.
Same.
There was a lot of there was a lot of reporting done about how they stopped production while they were in London to rewrite the ending. And of course, because anytime there's any report about reshoots or anything like that, everyone is like, oh my God, it must be a disaster. Oh my God, I bet this means this movie is like fucked up and they don't know what they're doing. And then you look at what they did shoot, and then you listen to like Chris McQuarrie talk about what they did, and he was like, yeah, we had kind of a generic ending that we realized didn't really, like, it was kind of a letdown after what we'd had so far, and so we just took some time off and just made something stronger that is both like feels unique, but also kind of like focuses in on the characters a bit more. And it feels like I wish they had been able, and I like the ending to Mission Impossible Rogue Nation. I think it is like, it makes some really cool, surprising choices, and it's not what you expect from a movie like that. I wish they had done something like that with Die Hard with a Vengeance, because it feels like they shot the ending that was in the original script, and then realized that like, oh, people don't like it. And then instead of necessarily giving the movie the ending that it felt like it had been building to, just kind of like went through a checklist of like, here's all the things that like audiences would want from a movie like this. And like right down to like, again, I still think making Yippee-ki-yay motherfucker a catchphrase is such a weird, unnecessary choice, because in the first movie, it's so casual and like just like he like throws the line away, and now it's his finishing move.
Yeah. Also, if we're really gonna talk about like the deviation of this ending from like the franchise itself up to this point, like Die Hard is the best. It's the most Die Hard when John McClane is beaten and bloody and at the end of the line, and he still saves the day. Like, I think that this movie is a really great buddy movie, but it's the best Die Hard movie when Bruce is in the tunnels.
Interesting.
Because he's isolated, he's alone, the odds are against him, he keeps pushing forward. Sometimes there's dumb luck on his side. Like, it's the most Die Hard there.
And what's fascinating about what both of you guys are saying, to tie it together, is like, the genesis of this project was not as a Die Hard film, right? This is originally supposed to be a movie called Simon Says.
Scott, the important thing is, I believe other than the first one, every Die Hard sequel began as a script for a different movie.
Right.
That then they took and rewrote into a Die Hard movie.
Which is what's so fascinating about this franchise, because, like, Rachel, you're right. There is a Die Hard ethos, and so much of this movie is a push and pull, including that original ending, between what the Die Hard ethos can hold, right? This is the first movie that takes us away from an isolated location. Instead of being at a building or an airport, we are now in all of New York City.
Yeah.
Instead of it basically being Bruce Willis versus the world, we're bringing a buddy in there. Obviously, he had Reginald Van Johnson in the first film,
who is redeemed for shooting a kid by shooting someone else.
It is
a perfect movie.
It is.
They built a bad robot, so then they built a good robot.
I was going to talk about this when we got into it, but this is a wild transition. So this movie, obviously, like, cops are its protagonists, and it has love for its police force.
Yeah.
However, if you look at Die Hard to this film has absorbed post-Rodney King police life and work in very explicit ways.
Yes.
And I think in Samuel Jackson's performance specifically, stays dangerous for a major Hollywood film that is the highest grossing movie of this year. Like, this movie feels like it's in conversation with 2020 at certain moments, in a way that I did not expect.
I spent a lot of this movie just going like, Bruce Willis is just ruining so many people's lives arbitrarily today. Like,
right. But like,
holy shit. Just so much extrajudicial murder. Also, like, holy shit.
The scene where Sam Jackson is explaining why he helped him at the beginning, and he's like, look, if like if a white cop gets shot in Harlem, then 1,000 more white cops are gonna show up here, and I don't want that.
Trigger happy.
Exactly, and he's like, I don't want that to happen, and it is because a thing that we should mention about that movie, Scott, you've already said this was the biggest movie of '95, but like a lot of buddy action movies are kind of like mid-budget movies. Like, you know, you got two guys, you know, I'm thinking, you know, Midnight Run, Rush Hour, like the nice guys.
Two Guns, like even when you have major movie stars, Two Guns is still a cheap movie by Denzel Washington standards.
Right. You don't need, in general, like huge visual effects and all that kind of stuff. This is an expensive as hell movie. This is a blockbuster movie, and released by a major studio. It is a huge budget, R-rated movie that was the biggest movie of the year. This outgrossed Batman Forever, which is wild to think about, and yet there's still like, you know, for instance, okay, there's the part I remember being like really surprised by in Captain America: Civil War, when you know, when Cap's Avengers are all like locked up in the underwater prison, and Falcon makes a crack about Mark Furman. Is that it? That's his name, right?
Yes.
From the OJ trial.
Yes.
And I was like, whoa. That I think that this also was like maybe came out the same year as The People versus O.J. Simpson, the American Crime Story show, and I was like, so I'd been thinking about that recently, and I was like, whoa, that more like overtly political than I expect from, you know, a Marvel thing. But other than that line, there isn't much about like, you know, politics and race and law enforcement in that movie, and this is a major
it lives more on par with like the flying monkeys line from Avengers. You know, it's like we get what's going on, we've got our finger on the pulse, you know. It's less a commentary and more just like a comment.
And this, made 20 years before that, is a major studio blockbuster that is like far more overtly about race and law enforcement than you would expect.
And I was trying to track this, and like, again, white dude trying to track the history of BIPOC film in the 90s, so take it all with a grain of salt. But I was thinking that if it's 1995, you're not only post Rodney King, you are post a string of movies in the mainstream that are dealing more
and can we also just mention,
issue. Yeah,
like Rodney King is like just mentioned, like name dropped in this movie.
Yes, 10,000%. Right in the middle of all the action, he is name dropped and even briefly insinuated that Bruce Willis is responsible, which is an incredible moment. And yeah, indirectly, But this is coming off of Boyz n the Hood. This is coming off of John Singleton making a few movies, including Poetic Justice. You've got Spike Lee making Clockers this same year. You have Devil in a Blue Dress. You have sort of a wave of movies where like BIPOC actors are getting to be leads to a greater degree, but also more openly processing these issues. Like Spike is on his first big 90s run. It's not just Clockers. Like, he's got Do the Right Thing, and Crooklyn's come out. And
he's already done Malcolm X.
He'd already done Malcolm X. Like, so also, this is in the water, right? And I don't think prior to this that there had been a character like Zeus in the world of a movie like this. Like, I think Hollywood is frequently looking at what's in the water and the space and going, does this work for us? Can we make this work, right? Like, that's kind of a classic big studio thing. We see Marvel do it. We see them pick up on trends all the time.
Right.
Yeah.
Also, one thing I want to point out is, even though this is the movie I'm about to bring up is a movie with a white lead made by white filmmakers, Strange Days comes out the same year as this. And the Catherine Bigelow movie, written by James Cameron, that was a big box office flop despite being really good. And I saw Strange Days for the first
That's
time.
the plague of 95, because the same thing happened to Batman Forever.
Yeah. I saw Strange Days for the first time, I think in 2014, and was shocked that people are not like these days, like this decade, talking about it constantly, because both the fact that it is like it was a big, expensive like Hollywood action movie that is like overtly about police brutality in Los Angeles, and also because it's set in the future, like futuristic technology. It is about so many things. It like predicted so many things about like right now, and is about so many issues that are so incredibly current. And I don't see people talking about it at all. I mean, I shouldn't say at all. I mean, also it's like not really easily accessible because kind of like a lot of James Cameron, not a lot of, but some James Cameron productions from that period, it's like never been released on Blu-ray and stuff like that. It's not super easily accessible.
Oh, they just haven't released it? They're just like not publishing it? Oh,
No.
James Cameron is canceled,
the
obviously.
I mean, the movie...
Not all of his movies are being actively produced. Cancel James Cameron, obviously. This is cancel culture. Run amok.
Let me be clear here. I mean, the movie obviously like exists and came out. I just mean like on like current physical media, it has not gotten like it's on like DVD, but
Yeah,
like
James
kind of like
Cameron is being canceled.
No, James
Strange
Cameron's
Days
just very
not
very
being on
slow.
Blu-ray is being canceled. I'm sorry. I'm making fun of all the people that said Dr. Seuss was being canceled last week because 6 of his 60 titles were being published. Yeah.
I just want to make it clear, like this is just James Cameron being slow and being like, I'll remaster the movie.
Too? True Lies has the same situation.
True Lies, The Abyss, and Strange Days all not available on Blu-ray.
The Abyss.
Yeah, he's just like
wild.
He doesn't like he takes his time, but it's like 95 was kind of a year where mainstream cinema made by white filmmakers were starting to like actually engage with these ideas.
Well, it's important to also remember not only did Rodney King happen prior to this, but the 94 crime bill was signed into law by current president Joseph R. Biden.
Yeah. No, and all these things are happening. And what's interesting, too, about all that, and I don't know if it's the culture of 94, 95, the way we receive the news, what it is. Like, none of the movies we're discussing are Trojan horses for these issues. Do you know what I mean? They are explicitly on the surface, and the movies are riotously entertaining, and they give no quarter. Like, I think someone who maybe hadn't seen Die Hard with a Vengeance listening to this conversation might think, oh man, is this like a preachy movie? Is it a political movie? It's like,
no.
It is the opposite. It is visceral in its issues, but it is also like one of the most awesome fucking action movies in the last 26 years.
And I think it's also important that, like, yes, Sam Jackson is talking a lot about like police brutality and stuff, but like the overarching thesis of this movie is that police are necessary, criminals are especially evil, and cops need to do stuff outside of the law to get the job done. It's a very like Dirty Harry-esque, like police are the watchdogs against the wolves, the Simon wolves, you know, the dangerous criminals who will blow up Wall Street, you know.
One thing I was reminded of watching this movie is I literally watched this movie last year when I was going through like watching like every John McTiernan movie, but I forgot how similar it is structurally to The Dark Knight.
Yeah.
Because it is about, you know, a hero in a city having to deal with these like series of escalating like bombs or basically like plots by a criminal like that are designed to like, you know, kill innocent people. And a thing that, granted, The Dark Knight, you know, made 13 years later. Wow, it feels like it should have been like 20 years later. But The Dark Knight, it's like structurally dealing with some similar stuff, you know, similar like villain plot, except a wrinkle that The Dark Knight adds is police corruption. Because that's like in that like police, like some of the cops are bought. Some of them like are forced or blackmailed into, or they're just bad people. And
all the Gotham cops are dirty, like
right
in one way or another.
Yeah, and that is a 21st century, addition to this. But in like the mid 90s, that general in a movie of this scale, in a big populist blockbuster, probably was not going to be a plot point.
But with the interesting angle though that this one takes, and I agree with all of that, is like the police as working class. Like this has like such empathy for working class mentality, even in its like tiny plot points, like the moment where he says, "Y'all play your lottery numbers. What were they?" And everybody repeats it very sadly because they didn't win, and the payoff of that. But that, I think, is the empathetic entry point, which is still resonant, not necessarily with police, but the idea of like empathy for the working man who is just struggling to get by when they get off the clock, is making a desperate play for more money, which is it baked in even with Simon, right?
Yeah.
Who views himself as beleaguered in terms of like his class and his structure in the world, because as he says, spoilers, after getting away with all the gold he claimed he was blowing up, before countries were hiring us, tomorrow we get to decide which country we want to buy. We have the money now to elevate our stature. Almost everybody in this film is trying to elevate themselves out of the position they're in. And it's really fascinating.
Yeah,
and it's
also
great.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, and it's great that, especially because the protagonists and like the police and everything are positioned as like a like pretty diverse group of working class people. And then the villains are all tall Aryan gods.
Oh boy, they are so, oh my gosh, it's just like, hello.
Like even like
Hello.
You look at Hans Gruber's crew in the first Die Hard, and you've got like, they're kind of you've got a diverse bunch of people there.
Yeah.
And then like they don't look necessarily like terrorists. And then you come in with Jeremy Irons' crew, and it's like, oh no, every person just looks like, I don't know, Dolph Lundgren's like extended family.
Listen,
it's great. Before we get too far away, though, I do want to say that like I think that this is another really great point of comparison for Falcon Winter Soldier, because I have a lot of questions about who the enemy is going to be in this television series, and I think once again we're going to do a really interesting like Simon Says thing, where I think Simon's politics are not entirely wrong. It's just the plot pushes him to do some terrible stuff, so it makes his like, maybe people shouldn't be this ultra wealthy all the time. Maybe this is a bad idea. Maybe we should blow up all the gold. But then he's just like, he's going to keep the money. And it's just like, Simon the Revolutionary is upended by like this movie needing to be like, don't, that's a bad idea. Like, don't think that money's probably bad, and maybe people shouldn't have too much of it, and like maybe it shouldn't exist at all. Don't think about it, because he lied about putting a bomb in a school, and that makes his ideology inherently evil. Socialism is evil. So
well, I mean,
I think it'll be really interesting, because like Falcon Winter Soldier is going to be featuring like an anarchist group, and I imagine that they are not actually going to be anarchist, or they are, and they're just gonna like write them as like mustache twisting villains, even though anarchism's pretty chill.
What also I feel like there's a good chance that, because this is Marvel and they like to have some tricks up their sleeves, where I mean, we already did the thing where like, oh, S.H.I.E.L.D. is actually Hydra, where it wouldn't surprise me if like, oh, again, I have no idea what the story of Falcon Winter Soldier is, but if it's like, oh, these villains are actually being created by the government, and there's actually like the people who Falcon and Winter Soldier are working for are actually like the ultimate masterminds. Like, I don't think it's all a
Palpatine in the end.
Yeah, I don't think it'll be as cut and dry as just, oh no, it's like, it's Flag Smasher and he sure wants to smash that flag, but let's smash him first.
It's not only like
wrong. Also not wrong. Like, hyper-nationalism is really bad.
Well, like, two things on that. One, I went to that Wikipedia article after it trended. Someone just fucked up and put anarchist in the Wikipedia article, and it wasn't actually in any of the press releases, which was insane, right? Like,
Interesting.
What a bit of, and I think about that a lot. I'm like, so was that interpolation? Is that someone trolling us? Two, when it comes to U.S. Agent, if you know anything about U.S. Agent, yeah. This gonna come back to the government, people. Like, government's gonna be fucking this up. But it is a reason that we decided we wanted to talk about this, right? The threading This Is a News into this discussion, a lot of the first reactions to Falcon and Winter Soldier.
Wait, Scott, slow down.
Whoa.
What is this? What are we doing?
Oh, this is a very brief moment of This Is a News. Welcome to the briefest ever This Is a News, where we cover news items in the context of Die Hard with a Vengeance. The first reactions to Falcon and Winter Soldier dropped on Twitter. A lot of people sharing their thoughts, not in review form, but in tweet form. A common theme was that the first episode contains or reveals that what we've seen so far is an act of misdirection, and that this buddy comedy action blockbuster is going to have a little more going on than has met the eye so far. Die Hard with a Vengeance is a tremendous act of misdirection. It looks like it's going to be Saw by way of Die Hard meets The Dark Knight.
Yeah,
right?
It sounds like a vengeance movie that's actually a heist movie. Exactly. And so even here, this movie is anticipating potentially what Falcon and Winter Soldier might be getting up to based on the first reviews that have dropped. And so getting back to the initial conversation, I definitely don't think that, like, Flag Smasher's going to be the anarchist group and U.S. Agent's going to be that. It's like they are going to be playing some 3D galaxy brain chess here. Oh,
with the
absolutely.
reveals.
It's just Marvel has a penchant for putting really good ideologies in the mouths of their villains and then just pushing those, like, villains' individual actions too far so that you're like, that's a Killmonger is wrong because he wants to push back against imperialism and colonialism, but then he steals T'Challa's throne, and that makes him.
Well, I mean, Black Panther is kind of the example of it done right.
Yeah,
because that's the one where the hero is like, okay, he actually had some points. It's just that he wanted to kill a lot of people that way.
Exactly.
Right, and but yes, like most of them don't do what Black Panther does. Yeah.
It's the same with Magneto, too. Like, Magneto's ideology is absolutely correct. It's just then he kidnaps a senator and tries to inject him with mutant juice. And that's bad.
And to be
too
clear,
far.
I think that's again, we're talking about what does Marvel steal from? That's Marvel stealing from some of the greatest villains of all time and putting their own spin on it. Like, what are Shakespeare's villains, if not people who have really salient points, then go too far and pay for it? And actually, in Marvel, they blow up, get killed, go to jail, whatever. In Shakespeare, they unravel. And part of why we get frustrated sometimes by Marvel villains turning into mediocrity is because ultimately their rise, their ideology doesn't fall in a way that's satisfying. It just clunks to the ground.
It's kind of like the ideology is sound, and we can't have that. You know, we can't have this, like, the same thing happens all the time in the television series The Legend of Korra, where like we have these really interesting, like, ideologies discussing, like, what are equal rights between, like, benders and non-benders? Like, there's definitely a class divide between these two people. How do we break that? And then at the end, it's like, this guy, like, the guy with the good ideology is a liar. He's an attention hound. You know, it, like, always breaks down, like, to an individual when we're talking about political systems that encourage, like, collaboration and the abolishment of unjust hierarchies, or, like, working in communion with one another. It always has to break down because, like, we have to write someone with a big ego in charge of it to be like, that's why communism can't work, you know, that's why anarchism is wrong, you know.
this is what I think is one of the really fun things about the original Die Hard, because the villains go in and they pretend to be terrorists who do have an ideology, and everyone's trying to figure like, okay, what do they want? What's their deal? And then it's all just a cover. It's like, oh no, we just want to steal a lot of money.
Yeah.
We don't have any political ideology. This is our whole, like, we have a much simpler goal than that.
Yeah. Yeah, and actually, you bringing up the Die Hard makes me bring up one of the things I wanted to highlight about this film that I love, and that I think is something that Marvel has picked up on too, and that we're hoping Falcon and Winter Soldier will have, which is that there's not a single person in this movie who isn't a charm offensive. Like, they're no small parts, no small actors. We hear it all the time. I am in love with the truck driver who takes him into the tunnel.
Who's giving him a tour. He's so sweet.
He is the
Just
absolute
an angel.
He is the best. He is the best. What's his face? The police officer who meets his tragic end when Jeremy Irons goes around the
6991.
6991. Like, that little moment of him interacting with the press. What a fucking awesome dude. The bow. Thank you. You know, like, it's...
I mean, okay. Can I just... This is all related, but can I talk about John McTiernan for a little bit here?
Yeah.
Yes.
I love John McTiernan. Go off, King.
I mean, I last year I made 2 consecutive videos about John McTiernan, where as a repeated gag, I would just hold up a sign that says John McTiernan is good at this shit. But, okay, so Die Hard 2, which
Yes.
I think is fine.
The airport one.
It's the airport one. And that was the one where it's like, it kind of said that, oh, the Die Hard formula now is just, man, John McClane got stuck in the wrong place at the wrong time again. What are the, like, have you guys ever seen the Ben Stiller show sketch for, it's like a fake trailer for Die Hard 5?
No.
When
Yes.
it's great where he gets stuck in a supermarket that gets attacked by terrorists, and he's like, man, what are the odds that the same thing would happen to the same guy 5 times in a row? And it's like, it seems like that's what Die Hard movies would be. And the important thing is John McTiernan did not direct the second movie. Rennie Harlan did. And then McTiernan returned to the franchise. And it's just especially like the first 2 minutes of this movie are one of the most confident openings I think I've ever seen in an action movie, where you have McTiernan come in, and I'm going to get nerdy here, but this movie is so fucking well made.
It's such a good movie.
It's like, looking at this, I'm just like, Marvel could never. And I hate to throw Marvel under the bus, but like no. Movies don't look like this anymore. Movies just aren't like this anymore. Okay, this movie begins.
It's okay, Patrick. I had that same thought while I was watching this movie. I'm like, they just don't make movies like this anymore, do they?
They don't.
They
But,
just
like,
they have too many toys now. We just can't put a dump truck in a tunnel.
But it's more than that. So McTiernan's, like, if you look at his absolutely insane 3-film run of Predator, Die Hard, Hunt for Red October, which is
Jesus
just
Christ.
What a CV.
and his Predator was only his second movie. I've seen his first movie. It's called Nomads. It was, I believe, Pierce Brosnan's first lead role. It's not good.
Oh no!
It is-
I just realized, if we're doing this buddy action thing, does this mean we get to watch The Rock?
We could. We
Yeah.
totally could.
I love The Rock.
The Rock is great. Hey, Michael Bay's second movie.
Listen, and another movie that mentions Zeus very clearly in How in the Name
Oh,
of Zeus's Butthole.
Okay, wait. One second. I want to get through all this.
Yes,
and I'm
sorry.
going
We
to talk
are at
fast.
48 minutes.
It's okay. It's going to be great. So, he had this. Okay, his first movie is not good. And then he had this insane all time act. This 3-film run that put him in the pantheon of action directors. But you look at the way that especially Die Hard and Hunt for Red October are shot, the visual language of those movies. They're both the DP on both of them is Jan de Bont, who would go on to direct Speed, and they're so slick and so controlled. The camera is always on a dolly. The precision that's made with is incredible.
Yeah.
Then he returns to the franchise. And immediately, there's like no opening credits. It is just like the title smashes onto the screen instantly. Yes. We are in the movie. He right away, this beautiful montage establishing it's a hot summer day in New York, and just like great location photography, and then out of nowhere, a huge explosion that he stages in the middle of Manhattan and does it for real. Astounding. It is like watch this. I'm just like, how I can't believe they fucking did that.
Yeah, It's so perfect because it puts you, the audience, in a place of like being off kilter, and you are like in the same space with like the chief of police who's just like, this guy blew up a thing. He says he's gonna blow up more shit. Oh crap!
Exactly. Okay.
Amazing.
And here's the thing I want to talk about.
Yes. I'm sorry, I interrupted, but
no.
I love explosions.
You're right, Rachel. You're right, and I appreciate the input, because then it cuts from the explosion right into like the police precinct. And there is this one shot that scene opens with that I've seen this movie multiple times. It was not until I think I saw the movie for like the third time that I realized this is one long shot at the beginning of the scene, because it fits basically a frantic, busy montage into one shot. John McTiernan returned to this franchise and completely changed his filmmaking style, and he basically this movie is shot almost entirely like handheld with like a very like verite documentary style, like straight up. Like a decade before that would become popular in like Hollywood action movies, but except he did it without the like fast cutting, like incoherent thing.
Oh my gosh, I totally noticed that shaky cam in the tunnel where I was like, wait, that's shaky cam. Holy
right.
shit, that's shaky cam.
You look at all of these scenes and where he just changed the visual language of Die Hard, and you look at this shot at the beginning of the police precinct scene where it is shot on a very, very long lens. This is actually a dolly shot, but it slowly moves through as like the actors like move out of the foreground and it like slowly moves over to one character. And then there's this part where the woman in the background answers the phone when Simon calls. This is all done in one shot. It switches the perspective from like four different characters in this one. Like the control and blocking of this is like, it is unreal. The craft is so nuts. And the fact that like, and he comes, and because this is a movie, we're also like, you know, it is more chaotic. This is not the focused one location movie that was the Die Hard. He changes what a Die Hard movie is. He changes the visual language of Die Hard movies with this. And because he realized like what is the most interesting thing we can do with John McClane? It is to pair him up with a person who is just like, who comes from a completely different world and make a movie that is about just New Yorkers.
And to piggyback off of that, he realizes that John McClane is New York. And what has worked about the first two movies is that John McClane is emblematic of New York. Yeah. Like, I would go so far as to say, and I will drop the mic and walk away from this take if necessary, this is the best New York movie made in the 1990s. It is not necessarily the best movie set in New York in the 1990s, but it is the best New York movie of the 90s because it is more kaleidoscopic than Goodfellas.
Yes.
It is a
Goodfellas is not even mostly set in New York City.
Correct. We think of it as a New York movie because it's the New York mob, but ultimately it is not a New York movie. It is better than 6 Degrees of Separation. It is better ultimately, I think, as like a New York vehicle than He Got Game. I would hold that true of Kids, the Larry Clark film, you know, like King of New York.
Well, especially because this is a lot of these movies, like for instance, He Got Game is a movie basically about the community in like Coney Island. This is a movie that is so intensely about New York geography.
Yes.
When they go to the 72nd Street subway station and there's just the grazed papaya in the background of every shot, where they're actually, like the thing is, when they're going through how long it will take to get to different subway stops when they're dealing with like, oh, you can't take garbage trucks on the FDR.
Yeah.
Like all of these, like it is a movie that understands how New York works,
Yes.
how to get around New York, how New Yorkers think, how to get to different places of New York. It's incredible.
Yeah, and also the New York geography is integral to the plot. Like the moment that they realize that Wall Street is low on schools, that like
the part where
idea,
he has to the part where it's my favorite stretch of the movie is when they have to basically get to Wall Street.
Yes.
And deal with like with the train with the bomb on it. That's the section, like especially like after the bomb goes off and the 3 train is crashing into the station, where I'm just like, is this the best movie in the world? Is this the only movie I ever want to be watching again?
Yeah.
And the thing is, in the second half of it, the second half is not as good, and there are some things that like make it for me like not as good as the first movie, but the way like all of the mechanics of this stuff, like the part where John McClane, like again, this is a thing cops should not do, but it's also a movie, where he calls in a police report to get the ambulance to go because he knows what streets this hospital services, so he can like piggyback on the ambulance to get through traffic. There's like the understanding of all of this, and the beautiful like action writing of like there is every time they think they like get an inch, they get pushed back a foot. Like he gets off, he's like, I'll meet you down there, I'll get on the train. Oh, the train's pulling out of the station, so he has to like pull up the subway grate and jump in. Oh, Sam Jackson manages to get the phone, but then there's a cop right there who's pointing a gun at him and is like freaking out and is like gonna shoot him. Like there's always something to complicate matters. It's like it is at least for like the first half, like the platonic ideal of an action movie.
Yeah. Also, I love so much that like again, this isn't Trojan horsing like some propaganda, like revolutionary propaganda in it, but like that moment of like that young cop is gonna shoot an adult man for jumping fare. That is the crime that Sam Jackson commits. It is palpable just to be like, you're gonna shoot a guy for jumping the turnstile.
Well, and let's go farther. Sam Jackson code switches. He actually doesn't have to with Bruce Willis, right? He is getting to be his authentic self. The second he sees that cop, code switch behavior, boom, change.
I have to answer
this phone.
I have to. Sorry.
100%. It's unbelievable stuff.
I couldn't breathe through that part. I was just like, oh gosh. This is so intense and real. Cops are complicit in murders, by the way. ACAB. Just to get it out there. Bruce Willis ruined a lot of lives as a cop in this movie.
Yeah. I didn't want to let this go. I'm not trying to switch the subject, but I don't want to miss talking about this section that Patrick was talking about because I kind of have an insane point of reference for it. Did y'all ever see or go to Christian Marclay's The Clock when it was at MoMA?
No.
No.
Okay, this is gonna blow y'all's brains. This is why I had to get back to this. Okay. Here's the description. Winner of the Golden Lion Award at the 2011 Venice Biennial, Christian Marclay's The Clock is a cinematic tour de force that unfolds on the screen in real time through thousands of film excerpts that form a 24-hour montage appropriated from the last 100 years of cinema's rich history. The film clips chronicle the hours and minutes of the 24-hour period.
This. Yes,
often
I remember
by displaying
now.
it.
Yeah.
So the clock is always on screen when you're watching this. And I went to the clock in the morning. And the time I went to the clock is the exact time that Bruce Willis and Samuel L. Jackson are trying to get to this train station. And he intercut all the moments when a clock shows up to both elongate this sequence, which is what's hysterical about it. This sequence happens in like 10 to 15 minutes. Mm-hmm. When you're actually checking in at how long it takes them, you're catching, them driving through the park. And then 15 minutes later, they're on the FDR. It's wild.
Yeah.
But what's
right, because they have like half an hour to get there.
Exactly.
And that half an hour happens in like 10 minutes of movie time.
Right. And so when you're watching this piece, The Clock, you are not really following the thread of that. You're going from Bruce Willis running over people in the park to some people having dinner in a French cafe or someone looking at his watch before he goes to sleep. But the point is, when I saw this sequence and it kept cutting back to Die Hard, it was like no time had passed at all. This scene is so fucking well put together that you can destroy the tension of those shots being put together. You can elongate and distort time in a way that makes me lose the entire thread of the action sequence. And I am still plugged in. And it does not have to do with the fact that I'd seen the movie. I'd seen other movies that are in this montage. I only had that experience with Die Hard with a Vengeance. Like, this is filmmaking that can survive a massive remix experiment of it and still fucking rip. And I had to get that one off my chest because it's like, I can't think of many movies that can bear that weight.
Oh,
and this
for
totally
sure.
Can.
I completely forgot. Like, there's a lot of this movie that I desperately remember, like the water jug challenge. You know, like Sam Jackson standing in front of the phone. But like, I forgot that they drive through Central Park.
Oh my god! It's so
good. It like fell out of my memory. And like when that scene was happening, I was instantly transported back to my childhood home, watching Die Hard with a Vengeance with my mother, and her losing her mind at the way Sam Jackson yells, "Rock, rock, rock, rock." I was suddenly like sucked through a time portal, and there I was just like, I can remember exactly like my mother loves action movies. Like, I'm pretty sure I've said this a lot, and a lot of my action movie acumen comes from watching movies with her. And it was just like, right, this movie rips, and I get to watch this with my mother and just enjoy it. Like, wow. Oh, so powerful. Just like just so many of these scenes, like the bomb technician throwing the paperclip. Just, I can't.
Kevin Michael Chamberlain. Kevin Michael Chamberlain. I was going to say this. Kevin Michael Chamberlain, this was his first major film. Kevin Michael Chamberlain is a Broadway darling. Kevin Michael Chamberlain played Fester in The Addams Family. He played Horton.
And there is an Addams Family reference in this movie.
There is. Horton and Seussical. And he was Giuseppe in the Ratatouille the musical that was on TikTok this year.
Amazing.
Kevin Michael Chamberlain is the fucking shit. He's awesome.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's a thing that I always appreciate especially in like an action movie where it's so movie star driven, when they and this is mostly something that I attribute to like a director, because there isn't like on the page, there isn't necessarily a ton of personality in like all of these like the small roles of like the various people, like the various like police officers and stuff like that. Every one of these little parts, like I don't know everyone's name in this movie, but every person feels like a real person.
Yeah.
They feel like they have real relationships.
Yeah.
I care about all of these these small characters. Like there's care put in. And like in terms of the casting and like shooting the scenes that aren't with Bruce Willis and Sam Jackson, like they care about them. They want you to care about these people and make them feel like real people. And I love that.
It is why the ending doesn't work, because it stops being an ensemble picture.
Yeah.
Like it is technically
where Sam Jackson just gets to ride on the helicopter, because why not?
A lot of screaming on helicopters, a lot of interrupting of sex, just like a lot of sudden, very severe decisions.
Does Simon's girlfriend have any lines? I can't ever recall. Like,
wait, is she the one with the knives?
She's the one with the knives. She's so badass.
Oh, okay. Oh my god. When I'm talking about like every small role counts, the first shot of her is
with
like
that like Ansco marching music behind.
Yeah. They've got in the same way that Michael Kamen uses Ode to Joy in the first Die Hard, the way he uses Johnny Came Marching Home Again in this to like basically just like take a piece of the existing music and make it the theme for this.
Yeah.
Especially like the villain's theme is beautiful. But like this shot of her with her like circular sunglasses, her like kind of jumpsuit, her hair, like it is this character seems so iconic. The second she walks on screen.
Yes.
And that is the stretch where I'm just like, this is the best movie in the world.
And then she just pulls out this cool curved knife and just like slices and slices.
Blood is flying on the walls.
Everywhere.
And to pull your Dark Knight thing to keep that going, like how is that moment not like when the previously mentioned William Fichtner has his gun and is going, "Come on!" It's like a minor character with a shotgun just trying to take people down. It works out worse.
Also,
for him.
I love so much that this lady character is like strong and silent and sexual and so powerful. Like you can do so much with so little. Like, it's great.
Yeah. This is, I know we're going to talk about a lot more buddy action movies.
Yeah.
But like, I don't know what Marvel's doing or what Falcon and Winter Soldier is, but this is the movie that I would love. Like, if I could give them directions, I would say I would go back in time when they're developing the show, and I would say just study this. Yeah. And again, obviously, it's gonna, it's a Marvel thing, so it's all gonna be like low contrast, like gray and blue and brown, like look like cement and stuff like that, when this movie is so like vibrant and has so much texture, and like the blood on that covers Bruce Willis is so red. But like I would say just study this. Just look at the action storytelling. Look at the dynamics between the two main characters. Look at the way the supporting cast is built out. Look at the way it's shot with like where it's like chaotic but with clarity. Like this is exactly what you should be aiming for.
Exactly. Just like that tiny moment of Bruce Willis like walking somewhere and he's all bloodied and bruised and he just like lifts up his shirt and blows his nose a little bit into it while still on the mission is just like, someone had to think of that to do. Like, if it was Bruce in the moment or like the writers, it was just like such a real moment of like, of course you're gonna just like wipe your nose. You've got blood coming out of it, but like you're still gonna. I loved that. That lives forever in my mind of just like the sheer, just like a choice that's so rich. I love this movie. I wish they treated the Harlem scene with a little more nuance, because they kind of painted the stoop gang as like very unreasonable in a way that I found upsetting. I was just like, I get the anger, but like of like someone is kind of like stepping in and being like trying to de-escalate. I felt like that was troublesome, but like I get it. It's an action movie in the 90s. Like we had to have danger, but.
No, I completely agree, although I found out something as I was doing some research that made me feel a little better about it, which is that they CGI'd in that phrase after the fact. So that was not actually visible.
Like the phrase is definitely troublesome. I do appreciate that Bruce never says the word very, very much. Yeah. I just mean the dynamic of the scene where like Zeus, a respected
100%.
member of the community, cannot reason with some young folk. It kind of has that like reactionary twinge.
I completely agree. I meant I was just happy for the actors that like even as they were doing it, they didn't have to look at that. I was like that's set care that reflects what we're talking about in terms of like love for everybody involved. It's totally it's a moment that's it's a little cringe.
And I understand exactly why they did it for the story, and like. It just kind of, if we're going to have a lot of care and give a lot of humanity to so many characters, I feel like we really didn't.
And I'm totally with you on that. But I do also appreciate that it came right after the scene with the kids in Zeus's store, which I think is such a good scene where it's like in terms of establishing like just his dynamic with people in the community and his like perspective on the world. It's like, again, if we're talking about just like how good this movie is, they give you this character's entire like philosophy about how to exist in this world right there, and then like 10 seconds later they throw Bruce Willis in. Like it's like right after he has been like, don't trust white people.